Today, I'm taking a look at Halo Combat Evolved, the first Halo in the series.
We need to get going, Chief. We need to get off the ship before it's completely overrun by Covenant.
I'm not sure what I find weirder. The fact that someone has a cat on a spaceship, or the fact that someone thinks that's a cat. Flat Earthers, take off your tinfoil hats, and Round Earthers rejoice, because you were both wrong. The world is a Halo. This game came out all the way back in 2001. Yeah, that's right, this game is 19 years old. It was a release title for the original Xbox, and really helped to sell the console back in the early days, and was a critical and commercial success. A lot of people calling it one of the greatest video games of all time. It went on to sell 5 million copies by 2005 and had a HD remake done in 2011 for the Xbox 360 and has since been added to the Master Chief Collection, which was released on PC in March 2020, which is the one I'm playing on. I'm going to keep this review just about the single player experience, as the multiplayer is its own separate thing now, which includes all the Halo games, so I'll probably do a separate video on that at some point. I've never actually played any of the Halo games, believe it or not, as I've never had access to an Xbox before, so with the Master Chief Collection coming to PC, I thought there's no better time to jump in and take a look. I was really excited too, as I've heard so many people praising this game over the years. So how does it hold up today? In short, honestly great. So let's talk about the gameplay. The game puts you into the shoes of Master Chief, an augmented super soldier known as a Spartan, who is aboard a spaceship called the Pillar of Autumn, which stumbles across a massive artificial ring world of unknown origin. And after some disagreements with the locals about their space lawn, your ship sustains massive damage and crashes into the Halo, which leaves Master Chief and the remaining survivors to regroup on the planet's surface and find out what the hell is going on, but more on the story later. This game is your basic linear shooter at its heart, but it's also so much more than that. This game is packed to the brim with little details that really surprised me from a game of this era. Enemies don't just randomly spawn in, they come in drop ships. Enemies also drop grenades when they die. They will explode if you throw a grenade in the area, which can cause a chain of explosions. Once your shields are down, if you get hit, you bleed on the floor. And heaps more. These are just some of the ones I noticed, and they really help to make the game world feel really dynamic. The physics in this game also blow me away from a game of this time, and really reminded me of something like Half-Life. Throwing a grenade will send not just living enemies flying, but all the bodies on the ground too. All the weapons that enemies drop will fly all over the place as well. Gun turrets don't have to be blown up either. You can quite literally just knock them off the edge. And when you flip the Warthog, it doesn't just roll back onto its wheels. All the crew come flying out and can potentially die, and you have to manually flip it back onto its wheels, which really helps keep the game's combat super interesting. I also really like how you're not just this lone super soldier either. I mean, you are a super soldier, but you need the infantry to back you up as well. They will help you along the way, with assaulting and defending places, even mounting up on your vehicle's weapons. This helps make it feel like you're really part of this bigger, large-scale assault, which I love, and they really did this well even with the limitations of the original Xbox. The AI in this game is also really good, and the Covenant are a joy to fight, with heaps of different enemy types, which will require different strategies to take down. First, you have the Grunts, who are cowardly creatures, who you will quite often catch sleeping on the job. There are more deadly variants of them later on in the game, who have rocket launchers, but they're still easy to take down. Leading them are the Elites. These are fierce warriors that have personal shields of their own, that will take a lot of firepower to take down. They will also coordinate the Grunts to flank you and take you down. Killing them early on in a fight is a good idea, as the Grunts will flee in fear and scatter if you do. They also come in different variants, which you can tell by their colour. There are even cloaked ones later on in the game that will insta-kill you with their sword. Then there's the Jackals. These enemies can be really hard to take down with their handheld shields protecting them. You have to flank them or shoot them in the hand to take them down effectively. And then finally, there's the Hunters. They are massive armoured creatures equipped with rocket launchers. These enemies will one-shot you on harder difficulties and take huge amounts of damage before going down. The best way to kill them is shooting them in the back. Enemies will also take full advantage of what's around them, jumping in nearby turrets, piloting vehicles, and even hiding behind shields for cover. It all feels really dynamic, and I never got bored with fighting them. Then there's the Flood. I love the build up to your first encounter with them, from finding Covenant dead, or seeing them fleeing, to slime dripping down from the ceiling. A couple of levels you play to build up to this really had me engaged and wanting to find out more about what was going on. And my first couple of fights with them were awesome, and it really did make them feel like a Flood. But they got super repetitive quick, which I think is down to their limited enemy types. They're basically just a zombie faction with their jellyfish-like creatures that will actively chase you wherever you go, jumping at you and exploding on impact. Then there's the Infected, which are human and Covenant soldiers that have been taken over by the Flood. These enemies will mainly run at you and try to hit you, but later on in the game they can pick up weapons and shoot at you blindly, and some can even cloak like the Covenant elites. And the final type, which will run at you and try and explode, sending a little jellyfish everywhere. These can be super deadly if you don't shoot and explode them before they get to you. The combat with the Flood just felt really stale to me. Every encounter with them just boils down to whip out the shotgun and spam grenades, while you run around so the little jellyfish don't get you. I don't know if this just stood out to me more because the Covenant was so fun to fight, but I just got bored in these segments. There's also the Sentinels, which come in later on in the game. These are basically Halo's defense robots, and there's only one enemy type which just hovers around and shoots lasers. These are super easy to take down and pretty boring to fight. Then there's the Gunplay, which I really enjoyed. The human weapons are your standard sort of FPS guns, with an assault rifle, handgun, shotgun, sniper rifle, and rocket launcher. They are all fun to play around with though, and all their weapons kept giving me Starship Trooper vibes. I think because you can't aim down sights with the assault rifle, you just sort of spray it everywhere and hope to hit something. And the Covenant look like bugs? Or are bugs? I don't know, I'm getting off topic here. Where things get really interesting is the Covenant weapons, which you can pick up on the fly. There's only a few of these, but they really freshened up the combat, my favourite being the Needler, which shoots a heap of, well, needles that track to a target and explode after a short time. They also have two pistol-like weapons, one that shoots full auto, and one that you can shoot single shot or right click to charge up a shot. They also don't need to reload, but they will overheat and eventually run out of battery, which is when you will need to find a new one to pick up. I also really love their plasma grenades and sticking them to enemies. Watching them run around and freak out never gets old. There's also a few vehicles you will get to pilot throughout the campaign. Again, the humans have the standard stuff. The Warthog is your main transportation vehicle, and you will pilot them a lot throughout the campaign. I didn't like the way these handle though. They feel really floaty and unresponsive to me. I think this was on purpose because Halo doesn't have the same gravity as Earth, but I still didn't like it. They also have the Scorpion, which is basically a future tank, which is pretty fun to drive. Where things get really fun again is on the Covenant side, with the Ghost, which I can best describe as a hover go-kart with lasers. This thing is a ton of fun and zooms around the battlefield. And then my personal favourite, the Banshee, which is the only controllable aircraft in the game. I had so much fun with these, from dogfighting with other Banshees to pulling off strafing runs on ground troops. These were some of my favourite moments in the game. Alright, let's talk about the presentation. I really like the visual style of this game, and the art direction is top notch. Everything is super creative, from the enemy designs to all the weapons and vehicles. Everything really stands out as unique, which is really impressive from what was a new IP at the time. They had to come up with all this stuff. There was no lore to go off of. The graphics are also really nice too. These are the HD graphics from the remastered version in 2011, which offer more detailed environments and character models. You can also switch back to the original Xbox graphics with one push of the tab key, which I thought was a really cool addition, and though I played most of the game in the HD version, I enjoyed switching between the two to see what was different.
Across this chasm. Look for a control panel or switch.
The original graphics actually don't look too bad. My only criticism would be the environments are very bland, but this was likely down to technical limitations at the time. Other than that, everything's great, and the HD graphics, while they look a bit dated by today's standards, are really nice. I love that you can see Halo going up and around in the outdoor sections. I also really like the minimal HUD, with just your health, ammo and minimap showing, which makes it feel really cinematic. They also use a lot of creative ways to show you how much ammo a weapon has left in it, without actually having to look at the HUD. With the assault rifle having a screen on it, to the needler having all the needles sticking out of the top. I really liked this. There are also very few waypoint markers. A lot of games from this era overuse them, making you feel like you were on rails. Here though, there is only a few missions where you get them, which makes the game feel like you are really exploring this alien world. Wait, have I been here before? My only criticism is that a lot of interior areas look pretty much the same from hallway to hallway. This led me to getting lost on a few occasions, with backtracking through areas I had already been through. Some levels do have arrows on the ground to help with this, but sometimes you have to backtrack through a level to get to the next point. So then the arrows are facing the wrong way, which can make it even more confusing. I don't know. Maybe I just have a bad sense of direction, but it was a little frustrating at times. The sound design is also stellar across the board. The music, in my opinion though, really stole the show. With the epic home screen music that everyone knows and loves, to what I can best describe as jungle rock. The music really helped to make the game what it is, and I don't think it would have seen the same success if it wasn't in it. They also did a really good job on all the in-game sounds. Firing your weapon feels powerful and explosions are loud, just the way they should be. I also love how the grunts speak in English sometimes when they flee, and say stuff like, "Bad cyborg," and "Grunts first, we're smaller." These crack me up every time. Now let's talk about the story. If you still haven't played this game in 2020 like me, and don't want spoilers, skip to here. So I'm going to try to explain this the best I can, because even though this is the first game in the series, Halo Reach, which I think is the second game, is actually a prequel to the events that happened in this game, which I haven't played yet, but I wanted to play them in the order they released, so I'll only be going over what happened in this game. So the Pillar of Autumn arrives near a strange object, now known as Halo, but they are not the first to arrive. The Covenant, which has been hunting the Pillar of Autumn, is already there, and attacks the ship. Given no other choice, the crew are forced to wake Master Chief from his cryosleep, a super soldier known as a Spartan, to help defend the ship. The ship is overrun, and the captain Jacob Keyes makes the decision to abandon ship. He gives Master Chief Cortana, the ship's AI, to keep her safe, as if it was to fall into Covenant hands, they would discover the location of Earth and everything about the humans, which could not be allowed to happen.
Get Cortana off this ship. Keep her safe from the enemy. If they capture her, they'll learn everything. Force deployment, weapons research. Earth.
I understand.
The captain stays behind to crash land the ship on the Halo, while Master Chief fights his way through the ship to get to an escape pod and escape to the Halo. After crashing into Halo, Master Chief is the only survivor from his escape pod and is forced to fight his way through the Covenant forces, who are trying to kill all remaining survivors. He attempts searching for survivors and rescuing them so they can organise a counterattack. After learning that Captain Keyes has been captured by the Covenant and is being held aboard the Truth and Reconciliation, a Covenant cruiser, Master Chief and a small group of soldiers attempt a rescue mission. Using a gravity lift the Covenant have set up to get troops and supplies to the ground, they board the ship. After fighting through the ship and rescuing Keyes, he reveals that Covenant call the ring world Halo, and that they believe it to be a weapon.
About this ring world, they call it Halo.
Intent on stopping the Covenant from using Halo, Keyes searches for a possible weapons cache, while Master Chief mounts an assault on Halo's control room. After gaining access to the control room, Cortana, the ship's AI, enters Halo's computer system and finds that what the Covenant and Keyes are looking for is not what it seems, and in a panicked state, saying there is no time to explain, sends Master Chief to stop them.
Something buried. Where?
The captain, we've got to stop the captain.
Keys?
The weapons cache he's looking for, it's not really... We can't let him get inside.
I don't understand.
There's no time. Get out of here, find Keyes, stop him. Before it's too late!
After arriving in the swamp and finding the facility where the captain was searching, Master Chief starts to get a sense that something is very wrong with this place. Finding Covenant and Marines dead throughout the building, finally coming across a group of dead Marines that were escorting Keyes, and after watching a soldier's headcam footage to work out what was going on, he makes a horrible discovery. The Flood, which then relentlessly attacks him. After fighting through the never-ending waves of the Flood, Master Chief comes across Halo's AI, known as Guilty Spark. He explains that if he does not help him activate Halo's defenses, the Flood will destroy all life in the galaxy. Master Chief decides to help the AI, and once he has obtained the activation index for Halo, Guilty Spark transports him back to Halo's control room, where they need to activate it. Cortana intervenes before Master Chief can activate the ring, as she has discovered that Halo's real purpose is to destroy all sentient life in the galaxy, to starve the Flood of all potential hosts.
The only way to stop the Flood is to starve them to death. And that's exactly what Halo is designed to do.
Guilty Spark demands the activation index back, so he can get the Covenant to activate it, but Cortana refuses, so he attacks her and Master Chief, and after narrowly escaping the Sentinels, Cortana comes up with a plan to destroy Halo, by blowing up the crashed Pillar of Autumn. The only problem is, they need Captain Keyes' command codes on his implant to destroy it, and they track his implant back to the Truth and Reconciliation. Master Chief returns to the ship, only to find the Covenant fighting a losing battle against the Flood, which are trying to take over their ship. And after fighting his way through, discovers that Keyes has been taken over by the Flood, putting his fist through Captain Keyes' head, ending his suffering while obtaining his implant. Having what they need to self-destruct the Pillar of Autumn, Cortana and Master Chief head to the crash site, only to find the Flood trying to repair their ship so they can spread throughout the galaxy. The Covenant are there too, having been caught off guard by the Flood while they were trying to obtain information from the ship. After getting to the bridge, Cortana and Master Chief destabilize the ship's reactors and manage to narrowly escape the ship's detonation, which destroys Halo along with the majority of Covenant, Flood, and human forces. Cortana justifies their actions by saying they have saved the galaxy and believes their work to be done, but Master Chief states that they are only just getting started, and Guilty Spark is shown to have survived Halo's destruction after the end credits.
Just dust and echoes. We're all that's left. We did what we had to do for Earth. An entire Covenant armada obliterated, and the Flood. We had no choice. Halo, it's finished.
No. I think we're just getting started.
I really enjoyed the story here, and all its twists and turns. My favourite definitely being the build up to the Flood. They really took a subtle approach to it, and really had you guessing, which I really like. A lot of games, and movies for that matter these days, will just throw stuff at you a million miles an hour, to the point where it's like you're skipping through a video just to get to the dot points, which I really don't like. Probably why I don't watch many movies these days. Halo really takes the time and slows it down, even though it's only about a 10-ish hours experience, it really feels suspenseful. There's also hidden terminals in every level, which when activated play a short cutscene, which gives you backstory from the creation of Halo, all the way up to current events from Guilty Spark's perspective, which really helped clear up a lot of questions with the story, which I really liked, and surprised me that something like that would be in a game this old. So I looked it up, and they weren't in the original. They were just added to the remaster. Still a nice touch though. This is an easy recommend from me. Even for someone like myself who mainly only likes the multiplayer aspect of an FPS, this had me hooked right from the beginning. I'm really excited to play the other games at some point and find out more about this universe. It's also a steal for what you get. You can buy the Master Chief Collection, which includes all the Halo games, for $50. Or if you're like me and have the Xbox Game Pass, you can just download it, which is a ton of content for not a lot. They also have the multiplayer as an all-in-one across all the games now too, which is apparently really active, but we'll check that out in another video. Anyways, thanks for watching, and a big thank you to all the people that have subscribed. While I was making this video, we hit 50 subs, which blows me away that anyone wants to watch this, let alone 50 people like it enough to sub. I just do this as a hobby in my spare time, and really enjoy doing it, so it's good to know you're all enjoying it as well. See you next time.
Oh, I see. The coordinate data needs to be... Right. Sorry.